Welcome back, fellow dice rolling fiends. Jamie, your Emerald GM, here with you for a very special social distancing edition of discussing Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder in the world of the coronavirus. No, actually, today I'm going to talk a little bit about the Mythic Adventures rule set for Pathfinder. So if you're playing D&D 5e and you stumbled across this video for whatever reason, it's probably not going to be a whole lot of help for you because Mythic Adventures is a replacement for the old epic level rules for Dungeons and Dragons. The same epic level rules that really honestly never came into play if you started a character at first level, which is why I really like Mythic Adventures, because you can apply mythic tiers and give player characters mythic or i.e. epic abilities starting all the way at first level if you so choose. Okay, but first we're going to look at minis. I finally finished my Worldscape series. Hopefully I can get the light to focus on these things. Here we have Conan the Warlord. This series was extremely difficult to paint. Conan not so much. Colored with acrylic. And then I use a permanent metallic silver or gold or bronze marker to punch up little items like belt buckles and weaponry and that kind of stuff. This is Valeria in her temple assault gear, where she's got brown camouflage painted on her face. Okay, those were not the hard ones, but here's where the difficulty starts. This was the hardest one ever. Tarzan. He was extremely difficult just to assemble. It took me several times just to assemble the piece. He comes in 3 pieces. The stump is one section. And then you have the torso and the legs that clip on is another section. And then his arm with holding the spear was another piece on its own. And the spear, well, connecting the arm to his body was difficult because it connects right here. So it was an odd angle. And then getting the spear arm to stick on was a nightmare. It kept breaking off. I had to re-glue it several times. Just all kinds of stuff. Probably a tip that might help you if you encounter this kind of stuff. A tip that helped me ultimately from my friend John was that you should wash your minis when you get them, when you first purchase them and before you start painting them, because it will remove the oils from your skin or from the manufacturing or whatever. And if those oils actually stay on the mini, they can interfere with the paint. There's Red Sonja. As you can see, I pointed out before, her sword broke off in her hand. This figure doesn't have any way to connect it to the base, so I just had to paint her and then just super glue her to one of these bases with her foot kind of stuck in there. So I guess that's how she goes together. I mean, she seems to be all in one piece at this point. I like the way her hair turned out. And again, silver permanent magic marker to color that. Here's another one. Now this guy wasn't too difficult. John Carter of Mars, Disney of Mars. Okay, FYI, next time, yeah, use the character's full name and identity. Here I colored the weapon and the bracers with metallic magic marker to get John Carter to pop to life. Now here's one that turned out much better than I thought it was going to. Tarkus turned out to be really vivid. At first he just had kind of an ugly dark green wash on him, but when I went back to apply the lighter color, he just suddenly just popped to life. So really excited about that. And this is not part of the Worldscape series, except I guess at my table. There's Brother Finn, my recurring longtime monk slash druid. He's a monk of Aurori and follower of the Green Faith. If you're familiar with Galarian lore at all in Pathfinder. And a couple bonuses here. Here's Queen Iliara, the elf queen of Conan. I painted her a little while back, but hey, I never get to show her off too much because not too many, I haven't had a campaign where they went to Conan in several years, so, but there she is. Pretty happy with how she turned out. But now check this bad boy out. This is the one that I was working on. The Beholder. He's got all of his optional electric beams and whatnot. Magic missile, flame, lightning, electricity. You can take those out and just put in regular, just the regular stocks that don't have anything on them. But if I'm going to have them on the shelf, man, I got to show off the cool bits. I like that he's got a little clear stand connected to his base, and he came with some kind of strange plastic cover that goes over his eye. So I colored his eye, and then you put the cover on it, and it gives it that kind of weird look. And there I gave his mouth a couple different tones in there to kind of make the tongue pop out, with the back, the back of the mouth being darker, the tongue being a little bit lighter. So anyway, so there you go. You've got to come up with a proper conversion for these things to Pathfinder, because if you just convert them directly from 3.5, they kind of suck. Anyway, Mythic Rules. Let's talk about it very briefly. Okay, Mythic is a lot of fun. First and foremost, what it means if your character is Mythic, it means that the gods will and are meddling in your life in some way or another. It's very rare to get Mythic ability that doesn't have like some kind of divine influence behind it. That has happened a couple times in some of my games, most notably in Iron God's game that I ran. But usually the gods are behind all this stuff, and they're trying to direct the PCs in one direction or another. Couple problematic abilities with Mythic Adventures were really misread in some of the early days when Pathfinder first released the Mythic Rules set, and players just kind of never got over it. Abilities like Wild Arcana and Divine Blessing and whatnot, they're swift action to use. You activate it, but then you have to actually still use the action economy to cast the spell. So it's swift action and then a standard action. And they're limited to spells that have a casting time of no more than a standard action. So you couldn't use them to do like a full round or, longer type casting. Okay, so that's one problematic ability. Another problematic ability is when you get to the second tier and you have, what's it called? Amazing Initiative. So Amazing Initiative adds your tier to your initiative roll, and then you can use it once around as a free action to get another standard action. Now it specifically says you cannot use it to actually cast another spell. So you can use it to activate a spell completion item like a wand or something like that, but you couldn't use it to cast a second spell, because the idea is that casting two spells in a round, especially when you have Mythic and you essentially have access to any spell in the game, if you cast two around, I mean, you just break the game right in half. So it does help throttle it down a little bit. I highly recommend the Mythic Heroes Handbook and the Mythic Character Codex from Legendary Games. There's a section in the back of this called, what was it called? Mythic Solutions. It was actually released as, if I can find it in here, it was released as a separate PDF as well, and it kind of discusses some of the problematic abilities in Mythic. Problematic in a lot of ways, mainly because of misreading, whether it be from the GMs or the PCs or whatever. So again, things like Wild Arcana and whatnot, yeah, you can use it, swift action to activate, but you have to have that standard action available to then cast the spell that accompanies it. And I'm a stickler for things like keeping racial spells for those races. This gives PCs the incentive to go out and actually learn those spells. So if there's like a cool goblin spell you want to learn, like Fire Belly or something, find a goblin that'll teach it to you, then you can cast it. Here's the Mythic Character Codex. Okay, so Mythic Character Codex picks up where the Mythic Heroes Handbook left off, and it covers the advanced character classes. I think it covers pretty much everything except for the final source book from Paizo, which was Planar Adventures. So it has like all the horror character class options, the horror spells, the intrigue spells, stuff like that. Trying to remember if it covers wilderness or not. It might not cover wilderness. Okay, so then next to that we've got Psionics Augmented, which is Mythic Psionics. Really good system there. Some other problematic abilities are things like Mythic Vital Strike. things like that. The wording is very strange. Mythic Vital Strike is a point of contention for me with Paizo directly, because, you know, they released this rule set and then the fuckers just moved on from it. Never once released an errata like, hey, this is how you should try to run this. You know, if you're going to set a rule set out into the wild, at least, like, you can't take one guy to spend a weekend and go, oh yeah, hey, maybe try running this like this. People seem confused over it. Okay, the reason I don't care about running Mythic Adventures is because I have plenty of bestiaries. There's the Mythic Monster Manual, full of mythic versions of creatures. So all I have to do is replace a non-mythic creature with the mythic version. There's Mythic Monster Manual 2. Past that, we have more. Mythic Devils. Mythic Monsters Abyssal. Masters of Chaos. Mythos. Mythos 2, T-O-O. There are a lot of these too. I don't have all of them. I would like to get I'd like to get them all. Most of them are included in the Mythic Monster Manuals, but then these books do have some characters or some monsters that weren't carried over into those collections. So if you want to have the adaptations, you have to get these Mythic Monsters Undead and Mythic Monsters Fairy Tale Creatures for having some good creatures. There's a couple others I would like to get. Oh no, the Rune Giant just committed suicide. There are a couple more that I would like to get, like Mythic Mounts. That would be pretty cool. So anyway, so yeah, there's my Emerald Spire campaign cards. I encourage you to check those out in the game. They do have little clues and hints that point you towards other plot points and ways to gather various XP. If you're a fan of Lovecraft and Cthulhu, check out Color Out of Space. That's my recommendation for this week. Very creepy, mind-bending horror, and even a little bit of touch of body horror in it. And if you're a GM, here's my one tip for you. Always make a campaign notebook for your campaigns, for everything you run. That way you can keep your notes in it. You can write out timelines. You can have little cheat sheets, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, there you go. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys behind the dice. And may all of your rolls be nat 20s, except if they're at my table.